thinking that, what if we each had as our spiritual practice to spend a while each day to just think about our wonderful world, to be grateful, grateful, grateful for it. Ernest Holmes said, "There's a power for good in this universe greater than you are, and you can use it." He had a radio show, and he would start the radio show with that every week. It is so, so powerful, because that's what our teaching is about. It's about how we can use this amazing universal power, how we can use it by learning how to use our minds, by learning how to think. Let's see. Okay, there it is again. There is a power for good in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it. But our topic this morning is science, superstition, and common sense. But first, does anybody know whose birthday it is today? Good. Okay, he's in the back. Ernest Holmes. Today is, yeah. Is it? Happy birthday. 131 years ago today, Ernest Holmes was born. And so it just so happens that it's on a Sunday, and we didn't get cake, but we want to celebrate who he is. Here's some interesting bits of trivia about Ernest. He was the youngest of 9 boys in his family. And his parents, yeah, that's a lot. His parents they just couldn't tolerate anybody teaching fear as part of the religion to those kids. So it was really pretty amazing. There's a story about they went to church one time, and there was a traveling minister who was there with a fire and brimstone message. And on the way home, Ernest's father could contain himself no longer, because the message had included things like, "You are worms of the dust, doomed to decay in the dust from which you had sprung." And, okay, Dad couldn't handle that at all. So he said, "Don't be scared, boys, about the worms of the dust. You are not worms, and it's a big lie. Jesus said, 'Ye are gods, and are like God if you keep it that way.' Man was made by God. Any other story is a lie. Any other story is a lie." And so that's the kind of family that Ernest grew up in. As a teenager, Ernest was always known as the eternal question mark. The eternal question mark. He was curious, 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 and was always asking questions. After he completed the 8th grade, he attended a preparatory school, but not for very long, because he realized that form of education was just not for him. And so he quit and went out to learn from the world. Now, even though he never had any more formal education, past the 8th grade, by the time he died, he had been awarded over 70 honorary doctorate degrees. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is the big book, his major work that we think of as our textbook, and just, it's so important to our teachings and to our lives to read what he said in this. But he also wrote another stack of books that's about this high. He had a weekly radio show for years, and he was even seen on what was then the brand new thing called television. Television. And if you want to listen to him, or if you even want to watch him, you can go to YouTube and you will be delighted. It's really interesting to listen to actually how he spoke and how simple his talks were, how simple and truthful. He studied all the great religions and put together what is known as the golden thread of truth that runs through them all. And what he found is that the secret of life is fairly simple. Not easy, but fairly simple. There's a creative power for good in the universe. And we not only can use it, but we do use it with every thought. We use it every time we think, whether we want to or not. There is a power that comes into our thoughts, that comes into our words, that then turns them into our reality, our experience. Dr. Holmes said, "The science of mind is the study of life and the nature of the laws of thought. The concept that we live in a spiritual universe, that God is in, through, around, and for us. It's all there is." Which takes us to our topic for today: science, superstition, and common sense. Now, a simple definition of science is that it's the knowledge of principles and causes. What makes our life work? Our principles and our causes that we set into effect. Superstition, as defined by Merriam-Webster, is beliefs or practices resulting from ignorance, fear of the unknown, trust in magic or chance, or a false concept of causation. So whereas science is about the knowledge of causes, superstition is about a false idea of causes. And common sense, of course, is sound practical judgment. I think it's called the science of mind because there really is a science to it. It'll work for anyone who follows the teachings, follows the principles, use it. It's kind of like a phone. If the phone is working, it will work for anyone. You don't have to have any rituals. You don't have to do any special thing to make it work for you because it worked for somebody else, but it might not work for you. We know that. We just take that for granted. And so that is one of those scientific things that, it works. If it's charged up or plugged in, if you dial the right number, it's going to work for you just like it works for anyone else. And then there's common sense, which unfortunately is not so common. It doesn't make common sense that a creator would create us with intelligence and with the ability to make choices and then damn us to hell if we make choices that it doesn't like. It doesn't make sense that we as humans would be created with sexual desires and then damned to hell if we express those desires without the proper prescribed legal papers. It doesn't make sense. It's not common sense that a God would create us and give it all it has and want us not to use it. There are spiritual laws for sure, but most of organized religion is based on human laws or made-up laws that have to do sometimes with greed. Now, Centers for Spiritual Living, our big organization, and Science of Mind, can't really be considered an organized religion because I think you have to be a whole lot more organized than we are to be considered an organized religion. Yeah. Yeah. Much of organized religion is based on superstition, and we just don't do that. I mean, we don't teach people what to think, but we teach how to think so that we can create lives of joy, lives of health and wonder and love and peace. So the superstition, much of the organized religions superstition and their beliefs have been designed to keep people in line, to control them. Now, like the superstition of suffer now and you will get your reward in heaven after you die. Well, that's got to benefit somebody or some organization, some institution, but it certainly isn't benefiting the people who are suffering. A God of love would not do that. And we don't need to beg God to answer our prayers. That's another superstition. Oh, if I beg hard enough, if I am in the right position, if I'm on my knees, or if I have my prayer beads, we don't need to beg God to do that. And bargaining doesn't seem to work much with God either, which reminds me of a story that I thought was really appropriate given the amazing women's marches all over the country yesterday. So Adam was walking around the Garden of Eden, and he was kind of down, and so God said, "Well, what's wrong, Adam?" And Adam said, "I don't have anybody to talk to. I'm lonely." So God said, "I will make you a companion. I will make you a companion called woman. She will gather your food. She will cook it. Once you discover clothes, she'll wash them. She'll always agree with every decision you make. She'll bear your children and never ask you to get up during the middle of the night to help care for them. If there's ever a disagreement, she will always admit that she was wrong and you were right. She'll never have a headache. She will always look beautiful. And she will always give you all of the passion and love that you desire at any time." Well, Adam, you think he was right? Yeah, we got people here signing up. So Adam says, "Well, God, what would a woman like that cost?" And God said, "An arm and a leg." And so Adam is looking at his arms and looking at his legs and finally says, "What could I get for a rib?" Bingo. So, any thought that we can bargain with God is certainly based on superstition, and it probably won't work out so well. In Science of Mind and Spirit, we teach that we can use science, that we can use scientific principles instead of superstition, that as we pray, as we do our spiritual practices, as we lead our lives, we can do that from principle, knowing that it's not just superstition and knowing that anybody can experiment with our teachings. If you doubt that any of these teachings work, I dare you to try them. I dare you to up your spiritual practices. I dare you to see if these teachings really work. Many superstitions stem from the same human trait that causes us to believe in monsters and ghosts. When our brains can't explain something, we make stuff up. We make stuff up because we want to find meaning. We want to find meaning in our life and meaning in what happens to us. And I think part of our hope in doing that is that we sometimes think that maybe if we can explain it, then maybe we can control it. And most of us would at some level like to control our lives. So how about superstitions? Have any of you even kind of believed in any of these superstitions I'm going to list? A black cat crossing your path is bad luck. Yeah, roll your eyes, Linda. Maybe.
Orange jersey on Sundays.
Yeah, right. Didn't work so well this year. Maybe you've believed in beginner's luck, or that bad luck comes in threes. Or how about Friday the 13th being bad luck? But if on the first day of the month, first thing in the morning, you say rabbit, 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 you're going to have good luck all month long. It's working for me. For years, I still do that. Or have you ever walked out of your way to avoid a ladder because somewhere in the back of your mind you thought that walking under a ladder just might bring you bad luck? Yeah. The 1980s was an amazing time for me of beginning to realize that I didn't have to live by superstitions, that I didn't have to live by old things that I had been told. And I want to go over again what superstitions are. They're beliefs or practices resulting from ignorance, like we didn't know any better, fear of the unknown, trust in magic or chance, or a false concept of causation. Now, in the 1980s, in the early 1980s, Joan Armatrading came out with her song, I'm Lucky. Some of the words were, I'm lucky, I'm lucky, I'm lucky, I can walk under ladders. And for some reason, that song really had an impact on me. And I began to think, well, why can't I do any of these things that people said were bad luck? I began to realize that I live in a universe where I am fully supported, where Spirit has already given me all that I need, all that I want, and there is no such thing as bad luck. So I gave up a lot of superstitions at that time. And one of the superstitions that I gave up had to do with my lifespan. Both my parents had died when they were, well, one 60 and one at 61, and I always thought I was going to die when I was 60. Well, that song was part of what helped me realize that I didn't have to buy into that superstition, that I didn't have to claim that as my truth. Now, it's true that walking under ladders does increase your chances of getting a bucket of paint poured on your head, but let's face it, there's usually not a bucket of paint up there. How likely is that to happen? Walking under a ladder cannot bring you bad luck in any other area of your life. Wait, except if you believe it can. If you believe it can. If I walk under a ladder really believing that it's going to cause me bad luck, then I'm going to walk out into the world looking for things that look like bad luck. And I'm creative. My mind is creative. My mind is powerful. And guess what? I'm going to find some bad luck if I look hard enough. Superstitions like walking under a ladder can certainly affect our lives depending on our belief in that. But it is nothing compared to the superstitions that are still being promoted by some religions. Nothing in comparison. Now, even maybe some of us were taught as children that we were born sinners, that there was something within us that was evil, that we had to fight against the devil, that it was always wanting to take over our soul. Or there is the superstition that we have to suffer in this life to have a wonderful life with God later. Or the superstition that we cannot directly communicate with, directly interact with the divinity that is within us. The superstition that we might need a shaman or a priest or someone who died on a cross to save our souls. Superstitions. Now, millions of people still buy into these superstitions. They have for years and they continue to. But just because millions of people believe that doesn't make it so. For eons, people thought the world was flat. And that wasn't true either. God is good. It's the very power and intelligence and substance of all that is. It's what we're made of. It's what we are made to express. We have access to the same creative power that put the stars in the sky. The same creative power. It is done unto us as we think, as we believe, and it is done unto us as we are willing to commit to action in our lives. There's a power behind our thoughts that works just as surely as gravity makes water go downhill or anything else. The universe has provided goodness and love and joy. It's provided all that we can take in, all that we can claim, all that we can share. But it's only ours if we open to receive it and live as if it's ours. Ernest Holmes said, "The first principle fundamental to the understanding of the operation of thought is that we are surrounded by an infinite intelligence. The possibility of healing physical disease, changing environment, attracting friends, and demonstrating supply through the power of right thinking rests entirely on the theory that we are surrounded by an infinite mind which reacts to our thought according to law." A minister in our teaching, Reverend Mary Mitchell, who is from CSL Redding in California, said this about the creative power of our thoughts and our prayers. Scientific prayer is based on the equation C plus B equals A. So C is what we can conceive, plus B, what we believe, equals A, what we can achieve. What we imagine, plus what we believe is possible, equals what shows up in our lives in the form of relationships, health, finances, and every other area of our lives. What we conceive plus what we believe equals what we can achieve. So how can I use this in a practical way in my life this week? Okay, since God is good, and since my thoughts are powerful and creative, what can I do with these pesky, critical thoughts that just keep coming up in my mind about this government shutdown thing that I keep judging is happening because our leaders are not doing what they're supposed to do? What can I do about the fear that this might even get worse? We have answers for that. C plus B equals A. So first of all, I have to notice my thoughts and remember that they are creative. I get to look at them and say, is this the kind of energy I want to be putting out in the world? Is it? And it's not. Then I can remember that there's a power for good in the universe that I can use. This power is greater than I am, but I can use it. We all can use it. I can use my thoughts and imaginations to conceive of a world that works for everyone. I can absolutely believe and trust that somehow, some way, some good is going to come out of the conflict that seems to constantly be in Washington. I can believe that. I can trust and imagine that there's an energy of peace and reconciliation, that there's an energy of respect that touches places deep within the souls of our leaders. I can imagine that change can happen. I can claim that change will happen. Now, you might think that that sounds pretty naive, but if enough of us did it, if enough of us could believe, could imagine and then believe that this better world is possible, that this more peaceful country is possible, that this less divisive country is possible. If we can believe that, there's a possibility that we can achieve it. What we conceive plus what we believe equals what we can achieve. We as individuals and as a nation and as all of humanity are born for greatness. We are born for greatness. Your homework this week, should you decide to accept it, is to conceive of the world you want to live in. Conceive of the greatness. Imagine it. Dream it. Feel it in your bones. Let it become real to you. And then decide to believe in the greatness, in your greatness, in our greatness, in humanity's greatness. Choose to believe in that. Do whatever you need to do to convince yourself that your dream world is possible, even if you don't know how to make it so. Because this isn't about us knowing how to do it. This is about us coming up with the idea and believing that it's possible. Remember that there is a power for good in this universe greater than you are, and you can use it. As you conceive and believe, as you imagine and trust, I invite you to keep your eyes and ears and heart wide open to see the magic that can be achieved. Let's take that into prayer as our amazing practitioners stand. Stand if you want. That's the way it is. There is this amazing power for good in the universe, and it is ours to use. We can dream big. We can see peace. We can feel peace. Whether it's within our own self, within our family, in our workplace, in our community, in our world. I am so grateful that we have these teachings. So grateful that we know that there is something we can do. That we are here to make a difference. That we are here to display our greatness. Because that is what we were born for. I'm so grateful for this community where people come together, supporting each other, listening, sharing. So grateful for the amazing music that we have. So grateful for our amazing practitioners that hold such high consciousness, holding us in prayer, holding us in the light. And so I absolutely know that as each one of us goes forth this week, as we move into our week, it is remembering the power that is available for us. Remembering the greatness that we were born for. Remembering that we are here to make a difference and that we do it with our thoughts and our dreams and our beliefs. And so I know that it is good as we go forth, that all are blessed, that each one here today receives what they need. I'm grateful, and so I know that I can just let it go. I know I can just surrender it all unto the Spirit, the law, the amazing creative process, knowing that it takes it from here, that everything I have spoken is already the truth, already here for us to use, to enjoy, and to share for the highest good and greatest joy of everyone in our life and everyone in our world. So in gratitude, I let it go. I let it be. I know it's so, and so it is.